want.
I love doing that to you. I don't know why it's like a fun game now.
I like it. Okay, well, yeah, we can, because I think proof of work and the blockchain, those two concepts applied to understanding whether someone has put in the work to be in a position that they're ready to help others. I think this is a really important concept. So let's just riff on it very quickly. So in Bitcoin, there's this thing called proof of work, where in order to make new Bitcoins, basically, and earn new Bitcoins, you have to show that you expended energy through computing power in order to, there has to be some cost, some unforgeable costliness associated with the work you did to prove that you have earned that Bitcoin. And that computing power is what secures the whole network. So proof of work is you can validate and prove and objectively prove transparently for everyone that you did the work to earn this reward. And I started to see how that translated to the health guide certification, where it's like, okay, if the Footnerd program has this thing embedded where every day you have a learning log, and this whole notion that the potential direction that the 2022 program goes in is making it very simple in terms of a commitment. And people do this pre-commitment, and they get paired with a group or another individual that everyone collectively holds each other accountable, basically. And if every day you take a note down and you do the 6-month program, which is, let's call it 2 hours a day for 6 months, you're working on your health. And that can mean a lot of different things. Like literally cooking a meal is part of that. And then you take a little note down, you're building this chain, this ledger of work. So you're taking a log every day. Could be just like 1 or 2 lines, just a little insight or something you did. You're building this ledger of an accumulation of daily logs. And that serves as the proof of work that you tuned in to your health process every day for this period of time. And then when you work with a mentor, you can show them your proof of work. And so we'll probably have to make it digital so that the mentor can be somewhere else on the planet and see the proof of work. But all those strung together daily logs essentially creates a blockchain of the proof of work that you showed up every day and did something and wrote that down, wrote an insight down, wrote something you did. And so I think that's a really cool concept because it serves as a way to validate whether someone is actually doing the work to earn the right to help others, because through experience, they'll have learned a huge amount by just showing up every day for 6 months or a year for a shorter period of time. And so, yeah, I think that's a very powerful, like I'm very, people rag on me for always bringing up Bitcoin, but like the elegance of how it's designed and how it ends up creating these cool things from just basic rules. Taking a daily log every day of what you did is a simple rule, but it enables us to validate and verify that someone actually did the work to earn this accreditation, let's call it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good solution. And I agree. I think it's helpful and for everyone, and the structure that like Footnerds have actually been looking for and requesting since the beginning, is that like if what is actually required of us. And I love the idea of proof of work. I think it's so important and important for the learner. And then it keeps you honest, right? So it's like you don't have to have an accountability buddy because it's built in.
Right. And if you miss a day, that's okay. The next day you write down why you missed that day. And just there's learning built into that. So you're right. I think the primary benefit is actually for the individual going through the program, because they have some sort of metric that is an expectation. If you're going to do this program, this is the expectation. This is the social contract you're signing with yourself to do this work. And it doesn't have to be a huge amount of work, but spending an hour
a day.
An hour a day. I mean, not a lot of people have, or not a lot of people think they have an hour a day. And I think the other thing that we've been discussing, well, there's 2 things. Number one is separating the program into blocks, into chunks, where each pillar is a chunk, and then starting with community. I think there's something really special about starting with community. So you build community with this cohort of people that you're moving through the program with, and you introduce each other and you get to know each other basically for the first 2 weeks. That's like the main assignment for the first 2 weeks, is get to know each other, have a conversation with at least a couple of people, maybe do a Zoom call with people in your time zone, whatever it is. And then going to, like you brought this up, and I think it's a brilliant idea, financial literacy as the 6th pillar of health.
That's so funny. It's like you kind of have to make sure that we know that that I actually think that you're not like, you got to learn, everybody has to learn about Bitcoin.
Well, just learn
No,
about
but
money,
no,
not doesn't
it
have to
is
be Bitcoin,
true.
but money. And the
Money.
fact, yeah.
But
And
I don't think you should shy away also from asking people to look at, I think Bitcoin is a very interesting symbol because, and Nick, I don't think you should shy away from saying like, yeah, you should learn about Bitcoin. You know why?
yeah,
Because it is a doorway into the opportunity to understand how your life energy translates into currency, into what you do with your life energy.
agreed.
And I think that it has to be something controversial like cryptocurrency, because what else is going to like drive people to even start to think about it, you know?
Well,
Not to be like controversial, but it's the same thing like about a pandemic. Like if you don't wake the F up right now during the middle and decide like what it is that you actually want to do with your life force,
hmm,
you're not going to wake up. You know, if you can't figure out, and I think it's the same. Like I don't think it's like really any surprise that we have to reevaluate everything in the middle of a global, you know, pandemic and like everything that's going on. Like this is the time. So I think it's important to say like, yeah, I don't, I would have, if I didn't hear about Bitcoin from you, Nick, I would have never even like, well, first of all, I trust you, you know, because you're my friend and you're my coworker and my, you know, you're my person that is the closest to me in work. And so if you didn't say anything about Bitcoin, I don't know that I would have ever even heard the term. And then that unpacked the idea of like, how do I handle my money? It's gotten better over the years, but I'm in my 50s, you know, like I don't have really anything. And it was kind of designed that way, but but there's like blind spots too that I'm only looking at because I'm actually interested in learning about money because I don't think I've used my money wisely.
yeah, and I think that our money is really the primary if you use corrupt money that steals your time without you knowing, then you end up in this constant time squeeze where eventually you don't have time for health. And so
Mhm.
starting with, and it doesn't even have to be necessarily Bitcoin right out the bat, but like Eddie and I are going to record School of Coin episode 3, which is what is money. And really what that's going to do is going to go down to thinking about money and breaking down money into first principles. Like what
Mhm.
makes good money and what the hell is money? Like, why do we
Mhm.
use it? What problem does that solve? And it solves the problem of trade. It allows you and I to exchange and trade our skill sets, our specific skill sets. And money is the tool that we use to communicate value. And so we communicate value all day long. If the tool we're using to store our time and energy or to communicate value is flawed and slowly leaking and stealing time away from us, it's very important for us to have some basic literacy so that we can at least acknowledge that. And
Mhm.
whether or not people look at Bitcoin as a viable way, as a viable form of money. I mean, the cool thing about Bitcoin is that it's not forced on you. You have to choose to use Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin is constantly um, trying to get people to choose it by being a better form of money, by being a more honest, transparent, open form of money that anyone on planet Earth can use without asking permission and without people prying into what they're doing with their money.
Mhm.
And so just if people understand money from first principles, they can make better sense of money in their own lives. And then they at least can make a choice, a decision of what money to use now that we actually have a choice. And so, yeah, I think it's really important because this hamster wheel, like we played this turkey bowl on the weekend, and a couple of the guys I was talking to were just like, man, it's so hard to have a family and have a job and make time to see your friends. Like, why has it gotten so hard?
Mhm.
And we got into this conversation. Like in Canada, in 1 year, they created 18.5% more money out of nowhere. So
Mhm.
everyone holding a dollar now has 18.5% less purchasing power in the span of 1 year. So they have to work 18.5% harder just to stay where they're at.
Mhm. But I think
Most
it's
people don't understand that.
I think most people either don't understand it or don't want to understand it because everything's working fine the way it is,
Sure.
even if, okay, so I think that, let's go back to the idea that you heard me say, like, I think we should actually consider financial literacy as another health pillar. So this is not like just Nick saying, like, we got to talk. We've been talking about creating an idea about this for a long time to go into financial health, it seems
Mm,
like, because in fact, um, in the welcome package, in the introduction sheet, this is funny because like I thought this was like an internal question, but evidently I didn't realize that it goes out to everybody, which was the original sheet that you sent me, the questions about like how do you want to spend your time? What does your ideal life look like? How much money do you need to make in a year, right? So I was like, I remembered getting that from you when we first talked about like how my role was going to change with the Foot Collective. And I remembered thinking to myself that these were such important questions for reflection that nobody had ever asked me before. Certainly nobody that I was going to get a job from asked me. So that when we made the welcome package and the introduction sheet, I put that in there, but I meant to take out the how much money do you need to make in a year and how do you see yourself creating a life where you can do that.
It's a good question to
So,
ask.
and it's funny because it didn't occur to me until I started getting like our new Foot Nerds introduction sheets back that it was the first time that anybody has disclosed how much money they make in a year or how much they think they need to make in a year and how they plan on doing that. And I was like, holy shit, this is like a gold mine of great data to talk about people with. So I think, I don't know where I was going with that, but I think it's just so important. I think that this has been kind of building, I guess. It's not just since like you have been taking a more active role in teaching about Bitcoin. I think this financial literacy has been a big part of our back burner culture that we need to address. Oh, what
Yeah,
I was going to say, I'm sorry.
no, that's
What I was
okay.
going to say is that we draw the parallel, or I want to draw the parallel between not wanting to understand about our money because it's kind of working and we're in a routine, and the medical and like our health, right? So like it's easier to take an Ambien to go to sleep at night than it is to actually address all the things that might be keeping us from doing that. And I think that money and like financial literacy is the same. Like, yeah, I get that the government is like kind of snowing us about like inflation and stuff, but I don't have time to deal with it, and I'm just going to take this pill.
Right.
And so I think that that is why the pillar of financial literacy is important, because I don't think that we would, just like taking responsibility for your sleep or the tiny habits that create a good movement practice, like I don't think if we would maybe take responsibility for that if it wasn't actually part of the program or the curriculum.
Yeah, and I think the way this becomes more tangible on the back end, people who do the Footnote program take back responsibility in their own health, and then maybe choose to move on to the next step, which is work towards having the ability to effectively help others navigate gaining responsibility for their health. When you get to that point, a really good way is to actually work backwards. Like, how much do you want to work? How much time do you want to spend giving value to other people and then getting compensated for that? And people often start with, this is how much I want to make, which is fine.
Mhm.
If you've determined what kind of lifestyle you want and you want to freeze dry that, and that's just, you've made up your mind, then all you have to do is break down, okay, I want to make X amount of dollars per year. I need to make X amount of dollars per month. I need to make X amount of dollars per week. And if I want to make that amount of money in 5 days, I have to make X amount of dollars per day. Well, if I have to make X amount of dollars per day, how many people, what do I need to charge in order to see the amount of people I actually want to see per day? Because there is a carrying capacity whereby if you exceed that, you're going to burn yourself out and you're not going to provide a good quality service. So it's like, okay, I want to work 4 days a week. I want to take a month off every year, and I want to work 7 hours a day. And in 7 hours, I want to help 5 people, because anything more than 5 people in one day is just not feasible. And I help each of those people for an hour, and then I have 2 hours to just reset my mind and be able to get ready for the next person or take care of myself, like embed some health learning into that day. So if you want to work, you want to see 5 people a day, and you want to work 4 days a week, then that's 20 people per week. That's 80 people per month. And I don't know the math, but 80 times 12 is like, that's how many sessions you need to do. And if you want to make X amount of dollars, divide X amount of dollars by that many sessions, that's how much you need to charge per session. Is that a reasonable amount to ask for people to pay you for what you're going to provide them? And so really, it really allows you really working backwards and doing like a full financial design on what your work life looks like based on the finances you want to make for the life you want to live.
Mhm.
Allows you to have such a clear picture, such that when you hit that carrying capacity where you're in a good groove, you don't have to think about working more, right? You've planned out so that this is enough. This is enough for me to live the life I want to live. If I want to take more time off, then the days that I am working, I have to work a little bit more. I have to see an extra person each day. If I want to work, 2 weeks less than that 1 month off. So I think too many times I see people that simply work harder to earn more money, and they don't actually stop to think, what's enough money, right? Because otherwise
Do
it's not, it's just how much you want to make more. And I was
do you
like that
think,
for most of my life.
I was going to ask if you think that's like an addiction.
I think so. I mean,
Hmm.
like I know a lot of people who are addicted to Amazon, who are addicted to buying things, nicer cars, like who peg up their, if as they work more and have less free time for, ironically, the things that actually matter, according to them, the things that matter, they're not actually spending their time on.
Hmm.
As soon as they make a bit more money, they buy more expensive things. And those things carry a contract to say you now have to work more to continue paying for those things.
Hmm.
And before they know it, they're like spending their entire life energy working to afford the things and complaining they don't have enough free time. And there's always messages coming at you. There's always signals coming at you saying, you want this thing, you should have this thing, buy this, this will make you happy. If you go on this holiday, you buy this car, you're going to be happy. And then you buy it and you're like, fuck, I'm not that happy. Like that
Hmm.
lasted like 10 minutes and then that's
Hmm.
it. So I think part of health is just acknowledging that there are forces in the world that will always try and capture you to buy things. Um, Funny enough, Bitcoin gets demonized in mainstream media by people who don't understand it as being bad for the environment. But if you look at climate change as overconsumption, like we're consuming way too much, doesn't matter how you break it down, we're consuming too much, we're requiring too much energy, and it's creating a lot of waste and a lot of bad byproducts that are doing some funky things.
Hmm.
What Bitcoin makes you do is it gives the opportunity, it gives you a different set of rules to look through when you're thinking about the opportunity cost. So all of a sudden, the car that you could buy that's $30,000, well, if that was put into Bitcoin, in 5 years, that car is worth way less. That Bitcoin is worth astronomically more amounts of purchasing power. And so you think twice before you buy things because you're like, wait a minute, if I'm just patient and put this into sound money that's not going to evaporate and will actually get more value relative to national currency, like fiat currency over time, well, I'm not going to buy that thing because that'll
Hmm.
allow me to buy 10 times as many things in 5 years. And so it really makes you question consumption because all of a sudden there is a reliable vehicle to put your stored time and energy that you worked hard to earn into, and it will be preserved, it's secure, and you can rely on that giving you purchasing power in the future. So Bitcoin actually for me, it reduced my consumption because it made me second guess every purchase I made, thinking like, okay, I can either put it in something that's going to appreciate and hold value, or I can buy this thing right now. It's like, well, do I actually need that? Do I actually need to pay for the really expensive coffee every day or whatever the case may be? And so I think it enables financial responsibility. It makes you
Hmm.
think before spending instead of just like buying. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And anything that actually encourages us to slow down instead of making like impulsive crisis of timing decisions, where you're like you need to like fill the void quick,
Mm.
or you don't have the time to really think it through, is like better for our health, right? Like it's different than um everything else out there, which is like excessive and never ending and limitless growth. It's like, if you think about, I'm not against capitalism at all, but if you think about the concept about the idea of just continual growth, it's like you will expand and bloat and pop. Like there's like a limit, like to
Yeah.
everything. And I think that to tie it all back into like financial literacy being a pillar of health, it's like we don't want to live in our bodies in like this bloated, over consuming, cellular nastiness, so why do we not want to address our finances in the same way? Like if you look at foot nerds, like how we are, it's like it keeps getting leaner and leaner in our homes, like there's less furniture so we can move more and actually feel good in our bodies. Like that is the same in my experience with like I I have that we worked backwards the same way. Like what do we said like how much do you want to work in a week? And I remember being very resistant when Matthew asked me that question, because I was like, well, it doesn't matter how much I want to work. It's like how much can I work in order to make how much I want?
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I settled into it, I was like, well, shit, I want to work 20 hours a week. And then what was the most important thing? Like, don't ever work more than 20 hours a week, and then figure out what it, so then we started budgeting. And this was also very uncomfortable for me, Nick. Like, we started writing down just every day, what did you buy today? Maybe, and for the first couple of months, I would lie. I'd be like, I would just leave shit out, you know? And then I came back to Matthew and I was like, I don't know why I'm lying about the stuff that I'm buying, you know, because we're just trying to create a budget. But it's interesting about the psychology of money. Like, I
Yeah.
must feel guilty, or it's not healthy for me, or I feel like somebody's going to take something away from me. So then I just started to get real honest. So he turned the ledger over to me, and I was the one. So we would just keep a calendar and we would just write down like $3 for coffee. And all it was, he was like, just for 3 months, we're just going to look at what we spend every day. This is where I started to settle down, because he was like, we don't want to miss out on anything. We don't want to deprive ourselves of the luxury of being like, you know, a very wealthy for the rest of the world's standards, and have the luxury of the things that we want. We're just going to look and then see like, how much are we spending? So we did that. And then I cannot believe, like, however many years later, I work 20 hours a week and more if I want to. But we have like eliminated all the excessive things. Like, we don't want a car, so we don't have to pay car insurance, which means like, if I want to go out to eat once a week, I have like money to do that. But it's not like this never-ending hole where you have to like continue working to like afford the things that you then stuff in a garage or a storage space that you don't even know what's in there. And then you just keep going and going and going. And you just think you keep having to work and work and work. And so now everything I own, I can see. And my life is so much more free. There's a serious sense of freedom with like having taken that kind of like drastic responsibility.
Yeah.
And you
Very
asked me a
well said.
question. You asked me a question too. Like, I remembered, because and this is what I don't know why people don't want to talk about. Well, I do know, this is a rhetorical question. Like, we don't want to talk about the specifics of money. So there's like this element of like being embarrassed a little bit about how much excess or how little we make. Like, there's like status. Like, I realized how rude I am sometimes. I'm like, well, how much does it cost to do that? Like, give me, and I always will apologize, but I'm starting to just ask open questions. Like, let's talk transparency.
Mhm.
So I think the most money I've ever made in my life was like maybe $70,000. And then the least amount of money I've ever made in my life is like $24,000. Now, Matthew and I have combined our incomes, and he has like 2 master's degree and a PhD, and he's making 40, bringing home $40,000 maybe. That's after taxes.
Mhm.
And he has they've deducted his pay by 10%. He doesn't have any retirement funds. Like, we don't have like any kind of like security blanket or whatever, like people are, or we don't have like these traditional types of resources for the future. But my point in telling you this is that when I ask, what I realize is I've made 20,000, I've made 70,000, but I always felt the same. Like, I never felt when I made $70,000 that I would just spend all that and be more in debt. Like, I would just always be overspending. And then now at $20,000, it's kind of like I still make $70,000 a year, but I'm just better off. I work less. I have all the things I need and want, like really want. Like, I don't hurt for anything. And I'm making, $40,000 less than I did before.
Yeah. It's
And
like
you
you can
asked
make
me that.
$70,000 and spend it irresponsibly, or you can make $20,000 and spend it responsibly and have the way you live be fairly similar. Apart from
Yeah.
like some leisure things that, like, how much do those actually matter in the end?
And I remember I fell hard for the Foot Collective because I said I needed to make $60,000 on that question. That's what I wanted to come back to, is that you said, how much do you need to make in a year? And I was like, how rude he asked that question.
How dare he?
And then I was like, I think 60,000 seemed like really like highfalutin. And then when we had a conversation and we were talking about like the way that we could manage, and you were saying things that sounded like music to my ears. Well, like, if you had if you were working together with people, like let's say Forest One was like a place where people could like come and grow a lot of food, and then you could like have your shelter paid for, and then you would only have to make, you would have to make less. There was like some resistance because of psychology training and stuff, like, well, I think I would still need to make $60,000 because I would want to buy more things. And but there's this like, there was something inside me that was just like way more excited, like, oh my God, that sounds so amazing to like grow your own food and have build your shelter and like not have to, it just, I don't know. It's a long-winded way of saying like it feels better. It
Mm.
just feels better.
Yeah, and I think simple is good, right? A lot of times more money equals more complexity. Like even a car.
Hmm.
I was talking to someone the other day and they're paying like $180 per month to park,
Yes.
to
Yes.
store their car when they're not using it, on
Yes.
top of their lease payment, their insurance payment, their
Yeah.
maintenance costs, their oil changes. It's like cars are a very big financial burden. And the other thing that you brought up too is like taxes. Like we work if you work 50% harder, you don't make 50% more money because taxes eat up a larger proportion. So where is the sweet spot? Like considering all the variables, how I want to live, what my options are available in terms of what I can earn for the work I do, and also how much I enjoy the work I do. Because I know people that make a ton of money doing something they hate all day long, and I know people who make very little money doing something they love. And the people who are doing something they love, despite making significantly less money, are way happier. So
Hmm.
it also depends on like how much do you value having your free time? How much do you value enjoying the work that you're doing and finding meaning in it? Because
Hmm.
doing something every day without finding meaning in it is a massive source of suffering for most people.
Hmm.
And that is often it from my experience and talking to people, what leads people to do the unhealthy things because they're trying to escape how shitty it is that they're doing
Hmm.
something they don't like with people they don't like that
Hmm.
has no meaning every day. That's like
For more
that's a
than,
bad deal.
yeah, for most of your day, right? Like
Yeah, for
what
most of your
if you're
life
if
until
you're
you
working
retire.
like
And
eight.
then apparently it's
Mhm.
like, oh, yeah, it's great when I retire. It's like, well,
Yeah.
really? I don't know if anyone on their deathbed said, I wish I would have worked more. So I
Yeah.
think we just need to put work and money into perspective and just have like an honest conversation, being like, have you asked
Mhm.
yourself these questions?
Yeah.
Have you asked yourself whether the money that you use is actually taking away value from your life or allowing you to preserve the value that your life energy that you're sacrificing in exchange for that money? Like, are
Mhm.
you getting, is someone stealing from you without you even knowing? And that's really what financial literacy is all about. Like, be able to at least understand money at a basic level, like a grade 11 would, um, and then be able to make the best choice for the type of money that you choose to use for different purposes. Like, we're not going to,
Mhm.
people aren't just going to straight up go to Bitcoin and US dollars or Canadian dollars won't be a thing. It's not going to happen that way.
Mhm.
They will be there, but the balance, like consider Bitcoin like a savings account. Like you should probably save some money in case of emergencies or to allow yourself to work less in future and still have resources to be able to spend. So it's really just about knowing that there's a better savings technology and the fact that when you save your money, if it's getting sliced off every year, that makes it so that you're constantly having to work harder for less. And that's really unfair. And that's kind of what dominates most of the world. So just questioning money, you're right. It is super uncomfortable, especially when you start learning about it. Like I've had people, they're like, okay, I kind of want to learn how money works. They start learning and it's so angering and frustrating that they just stop because they're like, oh my God, I know so
Mhm.
little and this is really, this sucks. And so they just kind of disengage because it's like it's easier to disengage, right? It's
Yeah.
easier to not focus on your same thing like the Ambien. It's like it's easier to take the Ambien and then not do the work because it's way more comfortable and it's
Yeah.
less effort. But
And you
on the
think
other
you'll
side
get
of
you
that is better.
yeah. And you think you'll get back to it, right? Like you just procrastinate. You're like, well, everything's going smooth. Like the deposit goes into the bank, the bills come out, like everything's kind of working for the time being. Oh, your conversation with Bob Burnett when he, or I don't remember who it was, but it was like essentially the inverse relationship between Bitcoin and money. Like today, money, I hope I get this right. Today, money is predictable, but long-term Bitcoin is predictable, while today money is reliable. And then the inverse is true. Did I say that right?
Yeah, I think I was talking about if you don't understand much about Bitcoin, money is very safe and stable because it doesn't fluctuate in
Today,
value today. And Bitcoin is super risky. But the more
right?
and then in the future, so money is stable today,
Hmm.
but unstable in the long run because you never. like if someone wants to click a button, they print trillions of dollars, that completely changes what that money's worth. Bitcoin is unstable today because it's in the process of being monetized as a monetary good, but in the long run, it's extremely stable
And
and
predictable.
predictable. It is the most
That was,
predictable form of money. It's literally a piece of code predicts how much of it there will be and when it will come into existence. It's very
yeah,
beautiful.
that captured my attention about the volatility versus the predictability a lot. And so, Nikki Pop, it's like we went on a tangent.
That's okay. Sometimes you
That's
got to go on
good.
tangents.
That's so good. Okay. So I want to go back to, okay, so all that is to say that financial literacy is being added into our program as a sixth pillar.
Yeah. And it'll be a short pillar. Like it won't be, the other pillars will get more time, but I think like maybe a couple
Maybe
of
that,
lessons and a couple articles, like maybe 2 weeks where it's like, get this sorted, answer these questions for yourself, and then you at least have a good understanding of reclaiming your time.
what about the project being the budget, like what I was just talking about, where you
Yeah.
maybe for a month you write down in your household like all of your expenses, right?
Yeah, that'd
So
be
like
really good. And even
I,
putting like what actually matters to me in my life and what do I spend my money on
yeah,
and my
that's
time on?
good.
Because
That's
that
good.
audit, doing like a time and money
Audit.
audit is like a really good way to, number one, check yourself and kind of realign. But if you do it at the start, you're at least aware of it, right? If you're aware, you can then start to take some responsibility. And if you do it again at the end of the program, say like, I wonder where I'm at now compared to where I started. I think that would be a really good exercise.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Ooh, that's good. I like it.
Mm.
Okay, so can we go back to the 2022? You proposed those good ideas about like the cohorts. So I want to talk about how you see the numbers, right? Because I feel like I don't have a clear understanding of how it would work. That in my brain, if we wanted 10 people to come in before that cohort started the program together so that they could graduate together and form a community, it seems like we would be like it would get kind of like it would lose steam because I guess if I were joining, let's say I was the first one and I wanted to, I paid my enrollment fees and now, or put a deposit or whatever, and when there were, and I waited for 10 people, but what if it was like a year before there were like 10 people?
Yeah. So I think two things. Number one, we would from now, from October until January, if the first class starts February 1st, let's say for the for 2022, the first class starts February 1st. We have half of October, November, December, and January. We have 3.5 months to build a waiting list of 10 people where it's like they don't have to pay anything, but it's like if you want to enroll, send your application, get everything done so that as soon as this cohort is ready to roll, we go and say, and we can, the other thing too is if we have the new program design, we put it out there, show people what this is. If we reduce the cost of the Footnerd program because the health guide certification is the other half of the cost, which together, if Footnerd's paying $2,100 right now, just in enrollment fees, then they're getting for $2,100 the Footnerd program and the health guide certification. And if we make the Footnerd program a separate component, we can charge less. So we can charge like $1,250. The student pack is optional. It's highly recommended you buy these books, but they're not mandatory. So it's more affordable. There's more structure. You can choose a 6-month or 1-year program. And we have 3.5 months to build up an initial list of some even number. It can be 6. It could be anything. I just like, I don't know, 10 came to mind. And then we see like over the next 3 months, if we promote this new, and say we need like a month and a half to really finalize the structure, we got 2 months to put it out there and say, if you're interested, send an email here, apply, and then you'll get on the wait list for the first group that's starting this new program design on the 1st of February. Then at least we have time to gauge interest. And if there's very low interest, then whoever's interested, as long as we get an even number so that we can pair people up, that's the first cohort. Maybe it's 6 people. So it doesn't necessarily have to be 10, but it has to be, ideally a group of more than 2, and an even number so that each person can be matched with someone else. So
that kind of sounds like we're going back to our original model of applying.
Yeah, of quarter. So that was quarterly. And I think if we did this every 2 months, so bi-monthly, which is instead of 4 groups a year, it's 6 groups a year. It's all going to, I mean, it's really just you guess on the first one. And if there's less interest, then you do it less frequently. If there's more interest, then you can, I like the idea of there being people who express interest and apply, And then maybe every month we send them an update and be like, hey, we're at 6 people. So as soon as we get 4 more, maybe they go out and say, hey, I'm starting this thing. Do you want to do it with me? So we can do it at the same time. We start when we have a big enough group of like, whatever we choose the number at. And then as soon as X amount of people are applied, registered, and ready, like standing by, then we say, boom, you start together and you all start at the same time. So you're all, like you do this block together, you do this block together. So that was like my idea of a cohort, like a group that works through this thing together and that has a tighter knit like nano community, because the first 2 weeks is literally just getting to know the other people who are doing this with you and saying like, why are you doing this? What do you want to get out of it? Do you want someone to hold you accountable for something specific? When are you going to do your hour every day? Stuff like that. I think,
I like that a lot, Nikki Pop.
I think people are just gonna have more certainty. They'll have less potential excuses to make.
Well, and it's a built-in accountability buddy. Like you have a built-in accountability crew, right?
Yeah. And your proof of work system of like every day write something. I don't care if you write, I fucked up today and do anything, like just write something. It takes 30 seconds. And that is your,
I crushed the hummus and the cookies.
I crushed the hummus and do shit. And I'm going to do better tomorrow. It's like, that's a great entry.
Yeah.
You're not going to get
it's so
every
great
day.
because, I'm so excited right now, but you could see like, when you do that, like if you crush the hummus and the cookies and then you you get to see like, oh my God, I did that. You get to be honest, right? Because you're like, it looks like I did that 5 times in 1 week. What is going on? Whereas like, if you're not doing that, you're like, yeah, sometimes I fall, I don't know what's going on, but like, sometimes I just don't take care of myself. And then you have like a written journal of that.
And just writing it down makes you think a little bit deeper than just doing it and then waking up repeating the same pattern. So I think
very cool.
And you can kind of see the frequency of how often you get stuck and how long you get stuck for. And if you can see a trend over time where you're like, I don't get stuck for very long anymore, and I actually don't get stuck that frequently, it's like, that's really positive. That's a positive reward for forward momentum.
Do we get to call it proof of work too? Because I really like that.
I think we should. Because that's what it is. It's like putting in work is being mindful of your health process, and what you write is the proof that you did the work.
Yeah. That's good, Chief. That's good. Okay. So I wanted to, how like the welcome. So is that it for now for the Foot Nerd program? I think I have a clear understanding of that. Then I wanted to ask you, so how I updated the welcome package and I went into Shopify, and then you said you updated the URL. Like, could I have done that, or how did you do that?
Yeah. So you, when you add a new page, it by default creates a link for you. It's like tfcfootnerd.com/pages/whatever the title of that new page you created. And that it's under, I think it says it under like SEO. And you can go and edit that. So after you're done writing the title, you save the page, and then you can go in and edit the link to something shorter. So right now it's tfcfootnerd.com/pages/welcome. And if you type that in, that will take you to that page. It's not navigable yet because it hasn't been added to a menu on like main menu or footer. But yeah.
Did you teach me that before and I forgot, or is that something like back-end ninja shit?
I don't think I would have taught it to you, but next time it comes up, instead of me doing it, I'll just run you through it. But if you just look at the page, if you create a new page and you just put in the title and then find the place on that page where it says the link, you can literally click edit and you can edit that URL.
Okay. Yeah. Then so we're agreed on the Q3 newsletter being the Chief's notes from your email. So I'm going to create the Q3 newsletter. So that'll be kind of like tying all that up and closing out that model, because we're not going to do that anymore. That's redundant. That's Department of Redundancy department.
Yes.
And then we will post that on Mighty.
Yeah,
you want me to post that on Mighty?
What do you think?
I think I think it should just go on to Mighty, so people, if they have an interest, can just see what we're doing and see what it's like where in the Foot Nerd program, and see what kind of where we're going. And so like you could go down the rabbit hole and look at that. I think we should just post stuff on there that will help them clarify. So
I think we do have to make sure that the filter that we use for Mighty is that like this is We don't just want to post things for the sake of posting things.
Right.
So low frequency, but high quality. I think this,
Okay.
because this gives someone a sneak peek as to what the footnote program is and what's coming down the pipe to see if, maybe they're interested in it. So I agree. I think that would be a good one to go on Mighty. And as long as
I
we
have
trickle
been,
in the relevant things, I think that'll be good.
and I have been posting the newsletters on Mighty.
Perfect.
So I have Q1, Q2, and Q3. This will be the third one, and then I'll say this will be the last one for this. And I
Awesome.
can post that in community.
Yep.
And then as far as like content on Mighty, I have been trying to focus on like Selena's podcast. When Foot Nerds create something, I'm posting it in Mighty or making announcements and stuff. And then I always try to put like an old podcast that I think is relevant to our community up there. So I think maybe I'm posting once every 2 weeks or something.
That's great. That's a good
Okay.
frequency.
Okay.
And I think I'm going to do a check-in at some point soon, talking about the continuum of responsibility, just to like unpack that, because I think it will force me to think of like, what things do we offer at TFC and where does that fit into where people are in the continuum of responsibility, right? Like all of our free content allows you to start taking responsibility. If you want something more structured and formalized, and the Footnote program is like the next level up on your continuum of responsibility. And then we're coming up with this thing that makes you go even further and then prepares you to be able to help people navigate the start of that continuum again, and what taking responsibility even means, like really unpacking that into lay language and making, no responsibility versus full responsibility. Like, what do those even mean? What are examples of that? So I'll probably do that this week.
Did you read Ulysses' new reflection paper after our last call?
I haven't. I'm going
This,
to go in tomorrow's Thursday, I believe. Yeah.
Tomorrow's Thursday, but definitely take a look read that, because he did a great job of synthesizing everything and then coming up with this circular type of model based on what we talked about.
Yes,
And
Ulysses. He's a beast.
he is a beast. I love that guy.
We have some awesome humans.
So wait, then I guess what I'm hearing is that we'll continue with the Foot Nerd program, and then the HG project, the Health Guide project, will be a continuation. So are we keeping the Foot Nerd program?
Well, that seems to be what people really like. People had a lot of separation anxiety over the Footnote program disappearing. And it was your suggestion that the Footnote program is a different part of the continuum, and the health guide certification is the next level. Because maybe not everyone wants to become a health guide. And I think it would be good to provide a program where people can have some structure to taking back responsibility for their personal health, regardless whether they want to do it with others. That's the prerequisite to the health guide certification. But I think that's still, it's still a valuable program, and it still has going through the Footnote program is like a personal accomplishment. And I just got the vibe that people were very uneasy about the Footnote program, or Foot Nerds not being a thing. So I think it fits this way.
Yeah, I think it does too. Ooh, celebrate. Okay, so clarity, baby. Yes. Okay, so I wanted to just one thing I wanted to check in with you if the Canadian Bitcoiners confirmed with you, because I haven't seen that they accepted our invite yet.
They did. I confirmed on Instagram.
Oh, great.
Because I sent them a message, or on Twitter. I sent them a message yesterday and said, hey, let's talk about the Canadian M2 money supply, because it's like a really boring, like I think that just like passes by people's ears because they're like, the fuck is that? But I think it's really important I did research this morning to find out the past 5 years of how much money the Canadian government prints, and it's so unbelievably fucked up.
I like those guys too, Nikki Pop.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear your conversation with them.
Well, I'm excited to hear about like why they do the podcast, and also just their thoughts. And I'm excited to chat with them, because I listened to them in prep for Mario, because Mario was on their podcast, and I was like, oh, these guys are awesome, and they're in Toronto. I got to talk to those guys.
Are you going to meet them in person? I like how they talk like just
eventually.
Natural.
Yeah.
I like there was a short where one guy was like, why the fuck did you go there and not like check out that? And like, you got to go back. They're just like really cool. Yeah. Okay. So I guess the last thing was, I think we're good then. Oh, I know the next project call I'm going to put out on Slack, number 3 for Friday, November 5th at either 10 a.m. Eastern, and then, or Sunday, the 7th at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. So I'll put those choices out and kind of get consensus, and then we'll go forward with either one of those.
Lovely.
Okay. Nikki Pop, since we're on, do you want to, do you have any community stories?
That was a lot. I don't know if I got enough juice
I
to
know, me neither.
get into the memory bank.
Just checking.
On Monday, let's share.
Yeah. Since it was recorded, I was like, should we go for the nuggets? That was a lot of good nuggets in there,
Not
Nick.
that was.
Those were Nick
Um,
nuggets.
let's if you want to stop, because I mean you're probably
Oh
not going
yeah,
to extract all of this, but
that's
yeah.
right. I forgot. Yeah.